On August 30th, 2021, I want to call the Danville Redevelopment Commission special meeting to order. If you'd please join me in a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please let the record reflect that we do have a full board for a quorum tonight. We're going to typically, at this point in the meeting, we would approve minutes, but this being a special meeting, we're going to pass over approval of minutes and do it at our regularly scheduled meeting. The purpose for this meeting tonight is to discuss 145 East Main Street, the old Pop Logan building that has been on our radar and in our discussion for a couple of years, probably, as a highly prominent and primary target of ours to redevelop as a blighted property. It fits squarely within our economic development area and is probably our number one or two property in town to clean up. So with that, I'm sure the board is aware that the property went up for sale. It's currently on the market, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss whether the commission would like to make an offer to the seller, and if so, what amount, and any other terms that we would like to see in there. And so with that overview, I'm going to open the floor to the commission members, to the staff, and if anyone in the audience wants to speak on this, we'll get to that in a minute. So, anyone?
Do we have an estimated appraisal value for the county?
No, I don't. I can tell you that the list asking price is $225,000. $225,000 is the asking price. And I think it will take at least that in an offer, if not a little more, to secure the property.
Thank you.
I will also pitch to you for consideration, and this is just down the road, estimate on the building demo, 15 to 20,000, 15 to 20 for a demo of the building. So that, of course, would be on top of whatever we would offer. We could anticipate and expect
That's
those.
building demo and then refinishing grade.
Very rough estimate was 15 to 20 for the building, and I don't know if that includes fill or what have you.
And what was the status of the tank? Or is there a tank, I guess, but what's the status of that?
There was, and we know this because the lot that we own next door is part of that. And so they went through a process with the state. I can only summarize for you and paraphrase and tell you what I know, and our legal counsel would be better served to answer this question, but they did a cleanup, and it is the type of cleanup that it's self-monitor, and so there would, I'm sure, need to be some type of follow-up testing done to confirm that we would be in good standing with the state as a new owner and a buyer of the property. And legal counsel at Ice Miller can walk us through that process. So additional expense there as well, probably in the 5 to 10 range, I would estimate for that work.
So was that process similar to what was done on the vacant lot, the same process of
Correct.
vacating?
Exact same process.
Okay. So we'd have to go through soil testing and,
Exact same
Okay.
process, yep.
okay.
And would we have sufficient cash to close?
So what I would suggest is that we build in some due diligence time into the offer, at which time we could, terminate if need be for any reason, if appraisals weren't good, if environmental wasn't good, if we couldn't come up with money. By my estimate, we would have, by the end of the year, we would have 172,000 in cash, roughly 170 in cash. So we would need to find some more money somewhere to pay cash, or when Lisa Ternay and I were on the phone with legal counsel last week, we briefly started talking about financing options. I don't know how far our clerk got, but one financing option that is potentially available to us is what they call a TIF bond anticipation note, meaning it's a very short-term loan based on anticipated TIF revenue. So that's an option for us. The town council has coffers in the edit fund that's theoretically earmarked for economic development, of which this would be. So that's a temporary solution as well. We could, work with the town council on maybe pulling some of our budget money for next year into this year and switching it back out type of thing for next year to where it evens out. But I think there's options available. I'm confident we could come up with the money as a cash offer. And that's what I want to offer to the seller if we do this is, as far as they're concerned, it's a cash offer. And us finding the money is up to us, but it would not be subject to financing, and I think that would be important to the seller to know it's a cash offer.
Yeah, if we could do a tax anticipation note, that would be tax bond anticipation.
Are you familiar with those, Tracy?
Well, schools, we do TAWs, tax anticipation warrants. It sounds like it's essentially the same mechanism.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the same.
Very good.
Are you thinking that the purchase would be after the first of the year or towards the end of the year?
Towards the end would be my expectation.
It depend upon next year's draws, allocations of those funds. There could be sufficient funds.
Could be. And then, of course, we are walking down the road of the property on the other side as well. So at some point, I expect a short-term TIF bond to be necessary to acquire both of these within a, 3-month period of each other.
So then we're just flipping what we had talked about earlier,
Right.
instead of the rental first and that, yeah,
Right.
which is,
This going on the property was an unexpected turn of events that has changed the priority order, yes.
and you think we can handle both?
I do think we can handle both.
The first payment in 2022 will come in when?
Roughly the middle of the year.
Okay,
And so again, if we got a TIF anticipation bond, we would simply get the loan and pay them back when the TIF money arrives. I think is practically how that works.
Dr. Schaefer, did you talk earlier about maybe borrowing some and not spending all of our cash? I remember that conversation.
Yeah, I just simply asked the question, is that an option? That may be something, at least for this board to consider, if that provides a better pathway forward. But I think there's some things to work with bond counsel on to make sure that's a prudent way to go.
Okay.
I think if you do a tax anticipation warrant, it leaves you.
So again, we might be able to get through the first purchase based on solely cash, but I don't think we're going to make it through both. And so at some point, we'll need to explore that. And that was based on council's suggestion to at least look into as an option. Jenny, any further comments on that? Are we? Okay, very good. Do we have we'll eventually get to a vote, but is everyone on board so far? Do we have a general consensus that we want to make an offer of some kind?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Okay. And, yes.
With the edit fund this year, that will require an additional appropriation. So I'll just know that it was trying to go against any of that.
Meaning above our budgeted amount? Okay, thank you.
I think too, and this is something I know you'll be researching, but to see what the statutory time requirements are if you do a bond note, a bond anticipation note, just to when that has to be executed standpoint. I don't know what that is, but
It's because there's required public hearings and posting dates and that, so the bond attorney gets out the calendar and fills in the blanks.
make sure there's time to do that, and there aren't any statutory requirements at what time in the year that has to be completed by, when those have to be in. There may not be on these. I know there are sometimes on TAWs. Some of that's changed in the last few years. So again, just questions to double check with council on.
Understood, will do. Keep fingers crossed that we can get an accepted offer, and it would be a great problem to have to figure out. So, thoughts on an offer amount? The list price is $225,000.
Aren't we bound by the appraisal?
Not entirely. Based on our, Lisa Tournay and my conversation with legal counsel, that is not necessarily the case. But we didn't get into specifics about what variations are allowed. So again, if whatever legal constraints we have, we will find those out during the due diligence period. And if we must remove ourselves based on those legal constraints, then that's what we'll have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe it prevents us from making an offer. It may prevent us from closing on it, but it will not prevent us from making an offer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It'd be a good thought, or barking up the wrong tree. Start out at 10% of.
I mean, that's a good starting point for our discussion purposes. Anyone?
Well, I'm more inclined to go with the asking price. My inclination.
How about, I mean, the middle ground there is maybe 5,000 over at 230, and that way we still show a little good faith of really inducing an acceptance without going too far over.
I'd be in favor of 230,000 with contingency of appraisal and such.
I think you're going to have a better feel for that real estate market than I would certainly, so I would trust.
I would love to think we could get it for a full price offer, but it's a small town, and, you know, word is there's competing interests. And so we can, does that change your opinion at all, Mr. Glover, a little bit?
I like 230.
Staff,
Rest easy.
okay. Does anyone, staff, any comments, thoughts?
Well, rather than seeking this compromise, trying to compromise, why, you've done more thinking about this than probably the rest of us. So I think you were more comfortable with 10,000. So
No.
I guess what's your thought, Ben?
I've landed on 230 personally, as I think would be a very fair offer without being excessive. That's just Ben Comer's opinion.
How much of an advantage would it be if we had the cash offer? Is that common in these kind of dealings, or would that be a real big plus?
Right.
We're
So
offering cash?
we're getting into the psychology of a real estate transaction and a seller accepting offers when they're presented with a cash offer for a slightly lower amount and a higher amount that requires financing. I don't know what they will do. I've seen it go both ways, and it regularly goes both ways, and I think it at least puts us in the conversation of making them think about it.
Did you say who the seller was?
The seller, according to the tax records, is AJK Properties LLC. And that comes straight off a map that Mr. Vornholt provided to us at the last meeting. And I believe all indications are they're affiliated in some way, shape, or form with the Dairy Queen lot as well, although it's separate ownership. Scott, since you're here, may I ask you a question in your professional opinion? Is that building salvageable?
Under perhaps one of three different scenarios. Number one being, I know someone that's interested in the building. Number two, it's likely to come before the Design Review Commission, of which I'm the chair. And number three, if a new building's proposed there, gosh, I'd like to design it as an architect. So choose whichever of those scenarios you like. But again, I don't know the full history of the building. You know, it's got some character in terms of being part of the Danville streetscape and the historic effect of the Danville streetscape, but I can't speak to the, specific history of that.
Understood.
Okay?
One consideration too is if we can put together a good cash type of offer and not go too much above market, our ability to resell features is attractive too, versus if we purchase it at a higher price, it makes it harder for the next purchase that as well. So that may be something to keep in mind as we work down the road here.
Well, it sounds like we're at 2:30, so. Are you entertaining any motions?
I would love to entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that we offer them $230,000 cash, with the due diligence being the appraisal and the various testing that we need to do. Diligence.
I think we'll, yes, maybe put in the offer that the due diligence period is just X number of days, and just leave it at that, and it could be a catch-all for the various studies we need to perform. Say 90 days, perhaps, to do what we need to do.
I'll second the motion with the question you had asked staff if they had any comments, and kind of missed. I don't know if they had any or not.
I don't have any.
I think one of the advantages, if the town is the purchaser, and we do decide to raise that building, making that property shovel-ready will enhance its sellability.
I agree. We have a motion on the table to make an offer, a cash offer of $230,000, subject to due diligence. That motion has been seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, are there any other items for discussion tonight? Seeing none. Any report of officers, committees, and staff? Seeing none. I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.